My name's Andy Gregory. I worked for almost 8 years at the National Space Centre, where I initially worked as lead animator for all internal projects, particularly planetarium projects. Most people think of planetariums as stairs on a ceiling. This was a very new concept in planetariums. It was digital projection and it was digital video. So we were working with digital animation. We started off very small, just a team of 2 of us. And way before the Space Centre was even finished being built, we worked in offices in town, and we were working 12 months in advance of the Space Centre opening on a big sort of opening show for the digital space theatre planetarium. It was aimed to be one of the focal points. It is, in fact, if you ever go to the Space Centre, it's central to the Space Centre. It's right in the middle. And it was one of the big focal points that a lot of money was put into, and we wanted to make something that probably nobody had ever seen before, nobody related to planetariums, everybody's ideas. We wanted to sort of give them something they weren't expecting. And so it was quite a big undertaking. And part of that was, who do we get to voice this centerpiece project? So obviously we wanted to look locally, and the first name I think to come up in the first production meeting we had about it was, what about Richard Attenborough? And it was instantly one of those things where you say, yeah, all right, fair enough, as if we're going to get Richard Attenborough. And we basically just sort of said, well, let's make a wish list. Let's put all the people we would want. And we had him at the top of that list. And luckily one of the guys who worked there, Keith Beaumont, had a kind of an in or relationship with a friend of a friend who knew Richard. So we pursued that, and obviously we put money aside in the budget and everything for that. And pretty quickly, the news came back that Richard had loved to do it and just give the money to charity. So it was like, oh, wow. You know, and for us, that was such a massive deal that we were just upstart young animators trying to throw together this sort of semi-impossible project with virtually not enough kit, not enough equipment, and it was just like suddenly, wow, we're going to have Richard Attenborough's voice on this. So it really did sort of like give everybody a new lease of life. It's like all the work you looked at and thought, that'll probably just do. It was like, no, I'm going to go back and change that now. I'm going to go and work on it some more. I'm going to pull an 18-hour day on this because it's got to look perfect. If we're going to have Richard Attenborough's voice on this, suddenly a small production now looks like it cost a couple of $1 million. So it was a really big thing for us. We were all pretty much straight out of university, and to have your first project you ever worked on, to have Richard Attenborough's voice on, it was like, oh my God. The film was called Big, and it was all about the size of the universe. And it was really a primer for anybody coming in who didn't really know anything about space. The audience we were told to aim for was 5 to 90. So from ages 5 to ages 90. And so you were pretty much aiming at keeping it simple, keeping it basic, but trying to keep it interesting, and also trying to appeal to people who already knew some stuff, but maybe they didn't know as much as they thought they knew. So we were trying to sort of put everything together in a big melange in this film to sort of get across how big the universe is and some of the amazing sights of the universe, and do it all in 30 minutes, animated, with an interesting script and an interesting voiceover that would basically carry you away into the universe. And the problem a lot of these films have, and you've probably seen it parodied many times, is it is referred to in that industry as the voice of God, where it would be millions of years ago and people shouting at you essentially all the way through it. And we didn't want that. We wanted it to be a relaxing journey. We wanted somebody's voice to sort of be there as a companion with you. So for that 30 minutes as you were traveling through the universe, it was sort of a warm, soothing voice to sort of suit the pace of the movie. It wasn't a fast-paced movie. It was a gentle film, basically a sightseeing tour of the universe, until you got to as far as we'd ever seen into the universe. So we wanted that voice to be a companion on the journey. We didn't want somebody shouting facts at you. And when you listen to Richard, when you listen to him in his acting performances and in interviews, he has such a soothing, gentle, almost like grandfatherly voice. And that's what we instantly sort of said, okay, this is, again, it sort of changed our direction. We're going to take out that crazy music sequence there, and we're going to have it calm. We're going to have him feel as though he sat at the side of you almost, whispering a little bit in your ear. And it was, when it came around to doing the recording, unfortunately I couldn't be there, I was on holiday, but as soon as the voice came back and all the files, my job was to cut them all up and start editing them together into the film as well. And it instantly just took on a whole new life. It instantly gave what essentially was a lot of, not disparate, but a lot of maybe not particularly connected sequences, because the universe is gigantic. How do you connect them all together? As soon as we started to cut his voice together, it just created a flow, and it created an energy to the film which wasn't high energy, wasn't low energy. It just kept you interested all the way through, and it just elevated the film to I guess, levels that we didn't think we would achieve on our first attempt. As soon as we opened the Space Center, we wanted to see basically if he would come down. And again, it's one of those things, yeah, right, as if Richard Attenborough's going to come down. And he was like, of course I'll come down. And within a month, he came down, he visited the Space Center, he came and watched the show, came and watched it, gave us his feedback on it, thought he really enjoyed it. It was an interesting show. He learned a lot of new stuff. And it was like, you don't get that a lot, I guess, with a lot of big stars these days. And I think that's the difference you kind of see. He's not a celebrity. He's not like a movie star where it's just like you see them on TV and then you never get to meet them in real life. He kind of feel like he seems like just a real person, whereas movie stars kind of don't, and celebrities kind of don't. The whole draw with them is that they are untouchable, whereas he was just, he came, he gave us feedback on everything, and he just seemed to want to be involved. He seemed to want to sort of, no big fanfare, no big deal, not a huge entourage. And again, the other projects he's done, with the Picasso exhibition, stuff like that, he seems like he wants to give something back to the city. So I think that's what I see as one of the big differences with Richard. I don't think he sees himself as a big untouchable movie star, action star, whatever you want to say, celebrity. He seems more real.